Hey there, guys. Just want to chime in before the show starts and let you know that I apologize for the quality of this audio. Big props to Zencastr, though. Me and Adam, my guest this week, we recorded on Zencastr. Everything sounded fine on our end, and I'm not exactly sure what happened. Neither is Zencastr, but I want to give big props to Zencastr because Josh over there sent my audio over to an expert audio engineer to try to fix it up a bit, and they did a really good job of making it sound a little bit better. I had to go in there and I had to cut it up a little bit just to make sure that it still sounded a little good. So while this episode isn't perfect sound quality wise, it is, you get the gist of the interview. Adam's audio was not affected at all. It was just my side. So Zencastr is working on the issues now so that it shouldn't happen again in the future. Zencastr is typically always on point, and the times that they aren't, they do their very best to help you out, and they were able to get an audio engineer to make this episode sound much, much better than it originally did. So big thanks to Josh from Zencastr, zencastr.com. Check him out if you're a podcaster and you have to do interviews. All right, that's all I wanted to say. Is I just wanted to apologize for the quality of this audio. So let's get to it. My interview with Adam from darkknightnews.com.
Everything is Awesome is part of Courts and Parts, a podcast network featuring pop culture, TV, movie, and geek podcasts. Check out some of our other shows, like TV Ate My Brain, Let's Chat with Revelant Friends, and Podstalgic at courtsandparts.com.
Awesome. Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. That was awesome. You guys are awesome.
No, you're awesome.
You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. Make sure you check us out on awesomepodcast.com. You check out our podcast network, Courts and Parts, at courtsandparts.com. There's a lot of great shows there, like Let's Chat, Talkin' Chandala, and TV Ate My Brain, and many, many others. And make sure you this podcast on iTunes. I'm knocking this all out of the way now because I always forget to do it at the end of the show. So recommend to a friend. Why not? This week's guest, I am very, very excited about. We started talking several months ago when I got involved with Dark Knight News, a awesome fan website about Batman. Obviously, people know that. You should listen to the show. And he is an assistant there. He's an editor. And we got to talking and found out that we have plenty in common, including Kevin Smith. So if you are not a fan of Batman or anything really that the show pretty much covers on I'd say 90% basis, then you should probably tune out now. Without further ado, please welcome to the show an editor for Dark Knight News, host for Dropping Loads podcast, and I think a slew of other things he does that we'll get into. I'm not going to even attempt the last name here. Please welcome Adam P.
Yeah.
Adam, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. Thanks for letting me up. Thank you for having me on.
How does one pronounce your last name?
Oh, okay. I mean, like, it's pretty phonetic. It's the way you look at it. Just try to sound out each syllable. It's Poncharoensub.
Okay. I think that's how I would have done it if I took a stab at it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you did, and now people know. People know how to pronounce it. So I like to kick things off with this, with getting some origin points for what I have the guests here on for. And so you're going to do things we're going to zero in on today. Let's start with podcasting because obviously it's a medium that we both enjoy. What's your origin point? Like, what got you into podcasting, and then what eventually led you to decide that you want to start podcasting?
I mean, and I'm almost positive the answer's the same for you. Kevin Smith, I mean, he's a huge podcaster. He has like 800 podcasts and stuff like that. So I was, just constantly listening. And this was during his like period of, you need to podcast because everybody has a voice, everybody has a story, and things like that. He was trying to be very inspirational about everyone following their dreams, especially when it comes to podcasting, because you get to tell your own story, and it doesn't really require millions of dollars to do so. And then he just released that book, Tough Shit. I'm sorry, can I curse?
Oh yes, of course.
Okay, just making sure. Yeah, Tough Shit, that great little autobiography kind of memoirs that he released. That was like a very inspirational book. I'm sure you've read it. And like my buddy and I are like really really big Kevin Smith fans. We're like the most obsessive people most obsessive of Kevin Smith that I know around us. Like we talk about him all the time. We listen to all his podcasts, and both of us read the book, and we're both just like, one day I was just like, do you want to just do it? You want to just start a podcast? He's like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And that was that. Simple as that. We just decided to just get together with a couple friends, grab some rock band mics, and just record.
Super neat, like how indie that is, because you would think that my story would be similar, because as we've talked outside of this show, for our mutual love of Kevin Smith, he's actually like now in this generation of me podcasting, I would say he's definitely one of the reasons why I do it, and is definitely someone that I look up to in the podcasting field. But I go back to the days in Philly that one of the stations ran a contest to be a DJ on their show.
Wow.
And at like 16 or 17 years old, I was like, oh yeah, I so want to do this. And it never, like, me and my buddy were too lazy. We never actually did anything. But years later, the idea of a podcast had presented itself. But this is going back to 2007 when I first started podcasting. And it's really in its infancy. Like, I think podcasting is, if I've been podcasting for about 10 plus years, podcasting is only about 11 plus years old. I've been in it since the beginning almost. So like what we were trying to do is so new that we followed radio. So like my early shows are very formatted like a 2-hour radio show. I don't know. You live in Florida, correct?
Yes, Miami.
Okay. Did you guys ever have anything like when Stern went to satellite? Did any of them become free FM or like a talk-only station?
I mean, I wasn't a big fan of talk radio when I was younger. That's tough for me to answer. No, not really. I mean, talk radio in South Florida, like I think the biggest and longest running are these two guys named Paul and Young Ron. They've always been on the radio. They've never really done anything. They've switched over to a few different stations, but they were going on for almost 17 years, and recently one of them retired, I believe. So no, I don't think so. I mean, like that's the only one I ever followed, and they've been pretty consistently on the the regular radio, nothing like satellite or Sirius.
Yeah, see, like Philly is a pretty big market, I think, for talk radio, well, for radio in general, and there's that. And right now, the big is sport talk radio now. Like that is all like our rock station, our classic rock station. That was, even when it went to free FM. On the weekends and I think at night, it was still playing rock music. That dissolved and turned into a sports talk radio. We have 2 or 3 sports talk radio on FM right here in Philly. And prior to that, it was when Stern was huge here, and when he left FM, which is what I guess maybe bigger markets like New York. I know Philly. I know parts of somewhere in California. A couple places I traveled to all had their version of free FM. And it was, for me, bliss, because it was this DJ Kid Chris who's gone on to do a bunch of different cool things in different cities. It was Kid Chris, Opie and Anthony, Barsky, Matt and Huggy, which is who we based our show off of. All these cool talk radio guys, and that was where all my inspiration came from. And that's honestly, and I wouldn't say necessarily they're the guys that and Matt and Huggy, like Free FM, influenced my podcasting way more than anyone else up until about, that was 2 years ago when I started Everything Is Awesome. And that's really, like, if I were to sell you this show 2 years ago, the pitch was, well, it's kind of like Fat Man on Batman, but except take out Batman and replace it with podcasts. Like, I just want to talk to a bunch of podcasters.
That's cool. I mean, like, so that means you have like real, like, homegrown roots in talk radio and podcasting. That's pretty cool. Like, yeah, no, Miami's not a hotbed for podcasting or talk radio. I mean, everybody in Miami just listens to pop music. Pop music, R&B, rap, all that crap. Like that's what dominates what our radio stations. I mean, we had one long-running rock station, and that's where Paul and Yaron were for a little bit, and then that disappeared, and then we got another one and that disappeared, and like so we can't stay consistent with our rock stations because nobody listens to rock in Miami. It's just a very small community of rock compared to like all over the probably country. I mean, it's a little disappointing, but thankfully there's one classic rock station that's remained, and hopefully it doesn't go away. It's a really good station, but yeah, people don't want to listen to talk. If they listen to talk, it's going to be in the morning when they're on the way to commuting to work, and then of course they want to make sure they listen to their pop music music as well. It's just a big pop music city, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've been to Miami once or twice for work, going back probably more than 10 years ago now at this point. And it does, and I for a little bit with my then manager, and it definitely strikes me as at least a music city. I wouldn't really pinpoint any genre because I'm not much of a music guy, but it's definitely very what's the word? It's, I guess, I don't know if flamboyant's the word I want to use because that always makes it sound like a negative term, I think, but it's just very dramatic. Miami is.
I mean, especially South Beach. You went to the hot, like, the place for music. I mean, that's where, like, of course, that's where all the clubs are. It's where all the dancing is. Like, they'll play loud music, obviously, because the clubs don't close until like 4 or 5 in the morning. Sometimes even later, depending on the day. Like, it's you're like, just drive down a certain road in South Beach, and you'll hear a wall of music surrounding you and things like that. So that would be the place for music.
Yeah. But yeah. So I love the rock band mics because for me, like, and even like now, I haven't settled for anything really less than a Radio Shack microphone, which is probably just about the same playing field mic. But like, I'm using a blue Snowball mic now, and then when I'm in my actual studio, when that's finally built, it's going to be a bunch of Shure microphones and stuff. So I've never, like, as indie as I consider myself, I feel like that's way more indie, is like to say, hey man, let's grab like this whatever microphones we can get, plug them into a computer or computers or however you guys did it. Like, so what was your when you first started, what was your setup? Because USB mics typically, at least with a Windows PC, you can only get one working at a time. So what was your setup for like those early episodes?
Wow. Okay, so we were pretty it doesn't get more indie than trying to use as many free programs as possible and whatever we have around the place. We grabbed this recording software called Crystal Media, I believe, which is completely free on the internet. I don't know if it's still available online or not. We grabbed the Rock Band USB hub. Like, I still use it to this day because it's actually a pretty nifty little USB hub. We plugged in like 3 or 4 mics, and then we had one of my friends come in with one of those gaming headphones with the mic attached to it. So that was that, and then like we held the mics to our mouths and we just started talking, and it's the worst sounding podcast you will ever hear. Episode 0. Like, we have an episode 0 where we sit there and we try to figure out what our podcast is about. I never tell people to listen to that podcast because it is the worst piece of trash you'll ever listen to. I mean, thankfully we've evolved, but like, we slowly started moving up. I mean, it took a long time. For mic stands, my buddy was pretty crafty, so he started creating like mic stands out of PVC pipes and spray painting it black just to make it look like a mic stand. And we were using those Rock Band and Guitar Hero mics for like a good 30 episodes before we decided to finally move up a little bit. First we started using Blue Snowballs. That lasted like 100 episodes for a bit, and then we've recently just got a mixer and like some really nice like mics that we plug into the mixer. I don't know what brand they are, but I think they're compatible with our mixer, and now finally we're like, okay, we have some professional grade equipment for once, and we're on our 200th episode, and I promise you we just got to this professional equipment on like 160. So it's 160 episodes of being indie as we can and trying not to spend as much money as we can.
That's what you have to do, as a podcaster, because as you mentioned, Kevin Smith said that everyone should be doing a podcast, and I agree with that everyone should be doing a podcast, because in this day and age it really can be like the most inexpensive. Like, once you get into it, then there are several costs, and like for me it's not even the hard, like, I mean, once I'm done like rebuilding my studio, the equipment costs are, I think my budget for equipment cost is going to be, so like I have to come up with like I think $5,000 to get the equipment that I want in that studio. But that's like just me being like, all right, it's after 10 years, it's time to upgrade from and I did. I have what I'm using now is the best sounding mic I've ever used.
Really?
In my own studio. I've definitely used like way better microphones for other shows that I was just part of. Oh, I see. But plus like the storage fees and hosting fees. And if you're going to pay for logos, if you're going to pay for merchandise or anything, like any little thing. It is, my warning to podcasters or wannabe podcasters is like, listen, like definitely do it and do it for the passion, because it's going to be a hobby that costs you lots of money, and you're never going to recoup that unless like you somehow, like 1% of the podcast make money. Like it's if you can do it, great, but like expect it to be just something that you do for fun. Like you be passionate about it,
and you will be spending money. Like it doesn't end, because of course there are monthly like hosting fees, like you said, like, and then of course we have to pay for domain names yearly, and then we had to buy a WordPress theme outright, and then thankfully I had a programmer, web designer that was like a really close childhood friend, so he did a lot of it for on the cheap, so that was really, really cool of him. And it doesn't get cheaper. Like it just, the cost will grow if you get better at it, especially if you want to get better at it. It's one of the things where once you realize that you can get better at this, you're gonna have to realize that more money is gonna have to be put down for this hobby.
And I feel like that, like you went about it such that like incredibly the right way of like going indie, so hardcore indie, because when I started, and now, like I said, mind you, when I started, there wasn't many podcasters, and it was more so like, let's think of it as a radio show. So for me, like I went in, I was like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to be the best damn podcaster out there because no one else is doing it, and I'm going to make all the money. And when my feeling on podcasting is, if that's how you go into it, like, oh, I want to do it because like I see Mark Maron and I see Kevin Smith and I see Adam Carolla and I see all these guys making money at sitting around talking in front of their computer. I don't know. It sounds like that you guys did not hit any walls if you're almost at 200 episodes. I think my longest running podcast went about 160 episodes and maybe 170. And it's you hit walls if you have the mindset of I want to make money, because it starts to feel like a job when you don't have that passion behind it. If you have the passion behind it, you can easily get to, for me, I'm approaching episode 100 in about 2 months from when you and I are recording right now. So like for me, even though I've already hit my 10-year mark in the business, hitting 100 episodes and not one episode has ever felt like work is a huge accomplishment, because I've, in 10 years, and we'll say a little bit less than 10 and a half, I've hosted and created about 15 podcasts, something like that. It's insane when you go into it for the wrong reasons, how much more work you create for yourself.
But I mean, you can tell that you're really into this, because I don't know if I could do it for 10 years. I mean, I've been doing it for 5 years, and it's starting to take its toll. It's getting really like a little difficult, because it's just like, okay, so let's say I record on a Tuesday. My week is shot. I have to make sure I give myself time to edit the podcast. My podcast is about an hour and 10 sometimes, and I'm very meticulous with the way I edit, so I have to make sure that I go in and I cut stutters and dead spots. So I'm very meticulous. So it's just like, it's becoming a grind for sure. But like but I don't know if, and I honestly don't know if I could see myself doing it for another 5 years. But right now I'm loving it, and I really enjoy just like having so many podcasts behind my under our belt. Like it's almost 200. I don't know a lot of podcasts that can hit that number.
Absolutely accurate. And like there's this awesome stat out there that there's out of every podcast that starts, maybe 50 to 60% of them hit 10 episodes. And out of those podcasts, only about 15 or 50% of those make it to 50 episodes. So the fact that like, this is literally a medium that anyone can join, and I do, like, I'm not one of those guys that thinks that, like, oh, you know what, you have this idea that's a podcast that everyone else does. I don't think you should do it, because that's insane to me, because just because everyone else is doing two guys sitting around talking doesn't mean that these two new guys aren't going to bring something new to the table and aren't going to bring something entertaining to the table. So, like, just like Kevin Smith, I believe everyone should try one. So that means literally there could be 4 billion podcasts out there that start, and only, probably about 1 million of them are going to end up getting to 100, 200 episodes. So like hitting 200 episodes, like as an indie podcaster, I think that's incredible because it's I really only see the quote unquote big guys get it, like Kevin Smith, Adam Carolla, those guys get triple digits that Babylon's about to hit 300 episodes. That seems expected to me because it's a celebrity doing it and obviously making money off of it.
Yeah.
Versus, I'm sure you've probably spent way more money than you've ever made in doing 200 episodes.
I don't want to even think about it. I don't even want to think about it because I am responsible because my partner works on the YouTube and he spends a lot of money on the YouTube, so I can't even imagine. But like over the 10 years, obviously, like all the costs with domains, like I said, all the costs with server hosts, it's crazy, equipment and so on. I mean, thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm pretty excited about it. 200 is I hate to toot my own horn, but 200 is a big deal. Like I've had so many podcasting buddies that love podcasting and never even finished. Never even got to 100. I have like a really close podcasting buddy that owns the network that we're on right now, and their podcast only reached 100 and something before someone called it quits. It's sad because I've had so many podcasting friends over the last 5 years, and a lot of them ended up dropping out of the podcasting game, I guess you could call it. And so I'm pretty excited. Like I'm pretty. I hate to say it, but I am pretty proud that we're almost there. We're almost there. I just released 198 on Sunday, so it's really close.
You should not feel bad saying that. You should be proud because, like I said, like it's not every show, especially indie shows, get to that number at all. And it is like an incredible feat that like I know like and it's I've been in almost every host and that's it, host and producer or just producer, and then also like maintaining it as a one-man team, which is what I'm doing now, versus a 2 or 3 or 4. When you have more people as hosts on your show like that, I just listened to an old episode of mine because it had my uncle on it, and I had put it to the side when I found it because I wasn't ready to listen to it, and I finally listened to it the other day to get it ready to post for like an open week that I had. And in that episode I said the most insane thing. It was, it's the 3 of us. We need to find a 4th person because I think 4 people on the show is great. And I don't, it sounds like that's what you guys have.
No, 3.
Okay, so 3. Yeah. Even that is too many for me. I barely, one of the main reasons this show exists is because it's hard to schedule.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure, you know this. Mm-hmm. It's hard to schedule between 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, getting 3 to 4 people in the same room at one time on a weekly basis is like, it's just, that's what killed it for me. And so I think what I owe a lot of the success to Everything Is Awesome is that like, it's just me. Only thing I have to do is make sure that I have someone to talk to. And even if that falls through, like I'll do something stupid, like sit around in my car and talk to myself as Batman. And that's how I fill a half hour or something. So my advice to like you saying like, oh, you don't know if you have 5 more years in you, find something fun and silly to do to elongate that time, because that's what, at least in my 10 years, I've discovered is that when I find new things and new challenges and just new, like our 100th episode that we're going to do for Everything Is Awesome, I don't have any details finalized, but I'm hoping to go way off the norm, from sitting down and talking to one person or doing even a live show where I do like my take on the Tonight Show. I love that. I don't know if you listen to tabletop podcasts, but they are the ones I listen to are a lot of comedians that sit around and play. So they're like literally the funniest. Like the only thing I laugh more at is Tell 'em Steve Dave. It is some of the funniest work that I've ever seen out there. So like, it's something that like, hey, you know what? I want to take a stab at doing something different. And I think that is huge. I don't know. Have you guys stayed the course over the last 198 episodes?
No. No. Continue. Sorry.
What was your, so what was your original format and what has it evolved to?
Okay, it's been different. Okay, so when we first started, we had 4 people on, and then we got 5 people on, and we were just like, we need to make sure all 5 people are here at the same time. And of course, like you said, that was a scheduling nightmare. Just trying so hard to get that many people in. And sometimes one of them is moody and doesn't want to get on the pod, doesn't want to get on the mic, and someone's just like being very flaky. Of course, we finally just said, okay, this can't happen again. So we, after about 30 episodes, 20 something, 30 episodes, we were like, okay, so we just realized a good dynamic was three people. We don't, because like with more than 3 people, everybody wants to talk and they're always talking over each other and so on and so forth. So that's always a bit of a difficult thing. And then like we realized 3 people isn't that hard. My co-host has always had a consistent schedule. So as long as you just ask him ahead of time, like a week beforehand, he'll just make sure that he schedules that time out to podcast that week. So that's always been very, very easy. And then I'll always find time. I'll force it. I'll find a way. And then the third one is not that hard, as long as we both try to accommodate the third person. So which we can, because we're both pretty flexible. So that's how it worked out. Eventually, we're like 3. The magic number is 3. It sounds funny. It flows best. It's not hard to schedule. And after a while, it became a very a consistent and intentional thing to switch that person out with a rotating cast. So right now, our main thing is that it's always me and my co-host, and then the third person is part of a roster that we go to like every other week. We have 3 main co-hosts, and again we switch off. One week we have this person, next week we have this person, and the third week we have the third person. That way it's always, and the chemistry is different for every podcast as well. So we always make sure that, so every episode sounds different. Every episode is different, with a different person. It sounds different. We talk about different things. They have different segments, and that way they don't get tired. They don't get burnt out with whatever we talk about. We and my co-host and I always have something new to talk about, because it's not the same person every time. That's how we changed it up and made it more interesting over the years. And now we've been kind of set on this new, not new. It's been like about 100 episodes where we're doing this one specific format. The content of the show has changed in that they, we call them semi-permanents. That's what we call them. They always have their own segments, and they, slowly but surely, like I will create a segment for them just so I could prepare less for the show, things like that. Because I was the main producer. I was always trying to come up with as much content as possible, and so on. But that's how it's worked. That's how it's changed over the years, and that's how we finally just figured out a good place where we're at, where it doesn't ever get too stale for us. And then whenever we have like a landmark episode, we try to do something a little different from before. Yeah, that's always obviously a big thing, to do something different. Like I think our 100th episode, which we've had a YouTube channel for years, which we're periodically using it, and sometimes we don't. It's never had to do with podcasting before. We kind of keep the podcasting side separate from the YouTube side, but we're just like, let's just do it. Let's just do something with the YouTube, with the podcasting. So we did a live stream with all 3 people all 3 semi-permanents at the same time. So it was 5 people, and we scheduled, and we made sure that there was a specific agenda to go by, and we had a great. Like we have a great friend who his job is to make sure presentations go well at conventions. So, and he live streams and broadcasts all the time. So he was perfect. We had like a built-in person that could help us with that, so he was like fantastic at that. And granted, it started out as a clusterfuck, but it was pretty entertaining, and things like that. We just so every time the landmark episode comes, we try to do something a little bit different, just like you said, just try to keep things interesting so that we don't burn ourselves out, because there was a point where we were burning ourselves out, and we finally figured out this dynamic, and it just works. It works so far. At least I think it works. I mean, we have fun with it.
And I think those landmark episodes are like great. Even I guess some people might say that's like the episodes that you should be like the way like the most your show is like you should take it. But for me, like it's the opposite. Like I feel like those are the episodes where like I'm going to go completely off the rails. Like, oh, you're expecting me sitting around talking to somebody for an hour or two? No. It's going to be like episode 25 for like, so the way I did mine was like landmarks were 25 and 50, and it was going to end up being 75, but I couldn't get what I wanted to happen. So 100 is the next one. But for 25, it was me sitting around in the car talking to myself as Bat. But for like one of my, I think it was my first live show that I produced on my own, outside of like the the podcast festival and the anniversary show I did, which was basically a mini festival. We did it at a comic book store, so I had Thor on the show, but we did it where he like didn't have Marvel Thor's outfit. He said, I can do like the traditional Norse Thor, and I was like, oh my god, what if we do we just market it as Marvel's Thor. Like, we have Thor from the Marvel universe coming to the show, and you come out as your Norse god Thor. Funny ass accent that he had, and I just play it off like, I think you're dressed silly, like I think you're fucking with me, and it went over bonkers. Like, it was such a good time. It's probably my favorite live show to date, because it was just so silly. And that to me, like, landmark episodes that I can do things like that. Yeah, I think there are people out there that think that you need to do what you normally do and just do it better for those. But doing the most silliest bonkers thing, I think, is way more important because it shows that you're versatile.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about going bonkers, but I always like to flip the script and do something a little different that's completely unexpected. That's what I always try to do for the landmark episodes. Like, but I see what you said. Bonkers is fun too. We're just not that bonkers.
Yeah, but like, and we did that within, I guess. So for me, and you and I have talked briefly off air about live shows. It's and this is something that I just learned through the Philadelphia Podcast Festival. The people that run that. One of the first questions they asked the first year that I applied was like, okay, so you're going to do your show live. How are you going to make it different versus you sitting around a microphone? And that really made me think, to the point where, like, I was talking to my buddy and I was like, listen, I want to get you involved as the co-host because I can't stand up there, by myself. Like, I'll get way too nervous and I'll choke. And we were discussing ideas of what to do for the live show, and he's like, well, I mean, why not do like your own version of late night TV? And when he said that, for years I've been saying that I wanted to do a YouTube show that was my like a weekly late night show, and I was like, holy shit, dude, that makes so much goddamn sense. And like, that's what it is. So that Thor episode, we did, a late night show. I came out, I monologued for 5 minutes. We played a game, and we had our guest who was Thor, and we had a musician at the end of that. So I guess like it didn't go completely bonkers. It's just that like that guest was bonkers, I guess. And I think, I think being able to, I guess at the end of the day, like, I do this show for me, and I don't do it like, as much as I love an audience and I love the people that take time out of their day to listen to this show. I want to make sure that I'm entertained, and that helps make this show like, it helps keep it going at the very least. I don't know how successful it is, but it keeps it going.
I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm like, that's the only way you can do anything in a field that's so difficult to break through and try to make money out of. You just have to know. You have to do something that makes you happy, obviously. So it's just like, yeah, it's just, that's the only way you can do it. That's the only way you can do it. That's a great philosophy, and that's why you've been in it for 10 years, man. That is a huge accomplishment.
And it's funny because I'm way more proud of the fact that Everything Is Awesome is about to hit 100 episodes than I am that I've been in it for 10 years. Because as much as I've been in it for 10 years, but there was definitely a 2 to 3 year break. Like that, I had a kid, and I need to figure out how I'm. And I tried doing it while I had the kid, and it was hard to do because I was still doing that format where I relied on co-hosts. And I finally, one day was screwing around in my shed, which is slowly becoming my studio, and my son, who was 3 at the time, came in And he's like, what are these? And I was like, oh, they're microphones, and we plug them into this mixer, and then we do it. I was sitting there with my son, which is also probably the coolest thing I've done ever in podcasting, is sit down with my son and do like a little 5 to 10 minute podcast that I eventually, years later, aired as like a bonus episode on the Everything is Awesome feed. And it's something that like he wants to do. It's just, I need to get my studio complete for him and I to do it again. But like, it's just like that was honestly, my kid is the one that jump started me back into it. Like I was at a place where I was in it for probably like just about like probably 5, maybe 6 years, and I was like, I can't do it anymore. Like I can't deal with the scheduling. I can't. No one else is a night owl like me. I have to be a night owl because my kids, and like no one else had kids, or if they did, like they were like, we're not staying up till fucking midnight, you ass clown. So like it became hard to schedule, and that's and me realizing I wanted to just do this. I finally came to something that I love doing. So it's a bit of a cheat to say I was in it for 10 years. Is the point of that spiel? But
close enough.
Close enough. That's the name of my memoirs. Close enough. All right. So I think we've gotten everything we needed to know about podcasting out of the way. So what got you? Because you're also a writer / editor
yes.
for at least darknightnews.com. Where did writing come into everything, or is it more so Batman? Like what got you to Dark Knight News? Where's the origin point for that? Is it something more because it's Batman, or because you wanted to write?
I wanted to write. I've been writing since I was a kid. Just like I wrote a story once when I was in summer school, and the teacher's like, "This is great. This is so good that you don't have to write for the rest of the semester." I'm like, whoa, what, really? And like that was the confidence boost I needed to just keep writing. Like I've been writing ever since I was a kid. I wrote in high school a lot because I was the editor of the newspaper, and I wrote a lot of the content in the high school newspaper, and it just kept going. I just really enjoyed writing. I really enjoy journalism wasn't originally what I wanted to do, but it was just a way for me to write. Now I really enjoy journalism. I don't know how that changed. I was mostly into self-expression, which I still do. But it went from high school newspaper to I found this local movie website here in Miami that's now defunct, and so I wrote for him, and he put me through the grinder. Not Grindr, the gay dating app. He put me He made me go through boot camp basically because I was writing like 10, 12 articles a day, 8 hours a day, even though I wasn't getting paid. I was just doing it because I wanted to write. Like I hadn't written in I haven't written 5 or 6 years, not for myself at least. I wrote for college obviously, but nothing for myself. And I was like, I'm really into movies. I want to work with you just because I feel like writing. So he put me through the ringer. He made me write 8 hours a day, 10, 12 articles a day for about a year, until finally he closed it down and went to Ain't It Cool News, which I didn't get to go with him because I just couldn't do it. Then after that, I wrote for an indie website that my brother was working on. That went absolutely nowhere. So after that, I was just like, I really want to write again. I don't know where to write. I want to play. I mean, so I wrote a few reviews here and there for Comic Book Movie. Anybody can register and write for them. But then I just saw Dark Knight News. I'm like, I love Batman, and I was like, I would definitely write news about Batman. So I just emailed at the time the owner of the Dark Knight News, and he's like, "You're perfect. Come on up. That's it." And then I've been with Dark Knight News for about 4 years now, so it's just grinding with that website until eventually my former editor-in-chief, I'm like, "Do you need help, buddy?" Because he was working really hard by himself, and he was like, "If you need help, I'll help you. I've been with the site long enough to know what the site needs." So he's like, "Please, I really need your help right now." So that was that. So that's how I became an editor. But I've been writing for a long time. It's a really big passion of mine. I just like writing. In the end, I just really, really enjoyed writing. And it's funny because at the time that I found Dark Knight News, I was blasphemy. I wasn't always the biggest Batman fan. I was just like, "Oh, he's cool. He's God, cool." Yeah. Yeah. And then what happens? I
was gonna say that I love Batman in the sense that I've always watched the animated series. I've always watched the movies. I didn't start reading Batman until Scott Snyder in the New 52. I was never I wasn't even a DC fan. I was a Marvel zombie. And even that, like, I wasn't a hardcore comic book reader until The Walking Dead and Marvel's Civil War, the original Civil War, brought me back into it. And I was a little hardcore for a couple of years there, but still, it was very Marvel based. Snyder brought me into the New 52, and that was I only read Batman at that point because I really only cared about Batman. And I would still say, like, my Batman knowledge is way noob level compared to probably everyone on darkknightnews.com.
No, I'm about your level because again, like, this is blasphemy. I don't read comics a whole lot, and I definitely did get into it because of Scott Snyder. Like, he's the run that I've been consistent with, the New 52 run. But I really mostly got into it because of the animated movies. I was working at Blockbuster at the time, and, you know, free rentals, so I was watching those movies like crazy, and I'm like, I really like Batman.
Yeah, it's like me. I mean, it is always be my Batman. Though I will admit that Ben Affleck, I really do enjoy, but I will never stray from the Keaton. And same thing. And I would actually say that maybe I would say that Conroy is my Batman, even over Keaton, because when I do read a comic, and I read
Conroy's voice.
Yeah, I hear Conroy's voice for Batman. I hear Hamill's voice for the Joker. Like,
yeah.
That's the two constants. And
yeah.
As much as I enjoyed Keaton, and as much as I enjoy Ben Affleck or Heath Ledger as the Joker, you know, those animated stories were just so good. And just as good, if not better, than the story.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, those representations of Batman are like some of them are probably the most definitive in visual media. Not like, of course, comics are completely a different side to it, but like, if you're talking about like television and movies, it doesn't get any better than Batman the Animated Series. See, that's where my knowledge is. Like, I don't have a whole lot of comic book knowledge aside from just like intensive research and a few books in here and there that I've read. It's mostly steeped in Batman the Animated Series and the DCAU and stuff like that. Like, that's where most of my knowledge is. That's where I fucking love the DCAU with a passion. And like you said, Conroy is my Batman. Nobody else comes close to him. Not like I'm okay with live action Batmans, but like, honestly, I couldn't care less as long as Conroy is still on this earth. To be honest, like it's just like, whatever, they're fine, they're cool, they do their thing, but Conroy will always be my Batman. But no, the closest one I think is Affleck to me. Affleck was tits. He was so good. To me, the best live action Batman. And I don't have anything against Keaton, but like, I didn't really grow up with those Batman movies. They're pretty silly now by comparison. I mean,
well, especially, I don't see. I can watch the original Batman, and I can see some of the silliness behind it, especially compared to Nolan's. But for me, like, it's still kind of, it's not Schumacher. Like, those.
Oh God, of course not.
Same universe,
yeah.
But like, those ones are definitely silly. But
oh yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's like I was when I didn't watch it when it came out. I was 5 when Keaton's Batman came out. So I probably saw that in the mid '90s, right around when I was like really into the animated series. So it'll come up at the same time. And I think what I like, if I'm being completely objective and not like just looking at, you know, what I loved as a child, Ben Affleck, I think, does a really good job at portraying Bruce Wayne, which is something that I don't think we've really seen before, is like a really good Bruce Wayne. Except for the animated series, of course, where I love that Conroy portrays the character as, you know, Batman's the character and Bruce Wayne's the disguise.
Yeah,
like that, I've always
that.
really loved.
I love that, especially because you hear earlier episodes, whenever he portrays Bruce Wayne, his voice goes way higher and a little almost clownish compared to his take on Batman. I love Conroy. We can say, if you wanted to sit here and talk about Conroy for an hour, I will talk about Conroy I love Conroy. Like, I just did a review for Justice League, the Flashpoint Paradox, and trust me, that movie is amazing. But like, what it all boils down to, my favorite part of that movie is the very end. end when Kevin Conroy comes in, delivers 2 lines about how you're one hell of a messenger and thank you. Oh my god, I love it. He was so good in that part, you know. Like I will fanboy about Conroy all the time. Like he's my Batman. Nobody ever comes close. And Affleck is great. And then, like you say, Affleck is the best Bruce Wayne. But I promise you, there's gonna be a bunch of Nolan fanboys that will argue with you like crazy because of how much they love Bale as Bruce Wayne.
Oh my god! See, I don't know. I appreciate the Nolan movies. I think they're really good. They're a really good, gritty, real world take on Batman. But I feel like I don't even think about Ben Affleck as the role. Like I look at those movies and what I see are movies that Michael Keaton could have done and done it way better than Bale. And I don't think Bale was bad. Like I think Bale did a great job, but I also see Bale as a guy who couldn't go back to the 1989 movie and do what Keaton did. Like I just think Keaton's a better actor. And I think that I don't think, and I will admit that maybe Keaton's Bruce Wayne is a little weird. Like it's not the norm. But I don't know. I do not. I love the Nolan movies. I just do not think I could easily forget them if I needed to. Like if I had to pick a set of movies to forget, the Nolan movies are the first to go. And definitely The Dark Knight being the hardest one to let go of because trilogy. Something that I can remember and look fondly about is Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, and he was only in one of those movies.
Yeah, I've said it before. Like Dark Knight is a really good movie, but what really brings it up to the stratosphere, like skyrockets it to like stellar status, is Heath Ledger's Joker because it's that good. It transcends that movie. It's so good. It's way better than his portrayal of Joker is better than the movie itself. Like it's so good. I mean, don't get me wrong, Batman Begins is a great movie too, but like it's Dark Knight that's like obviously the peak of that trilogy.
And you know what? I will say, and I don't give Aaron Eckhart enough credit, but my buddy,
he's good.
Yeah, my best friend, he's always made a valid point about Aaron Eckhart is that he doesn't get enough credit because he not only he had to act to be Harvey Dent, he had to be crazy Harvey Dent, and he had to be Two-Face. Like he had to do 3 different takes on the same character, and in one like. To a degree, that's more impressive than what Heath Ledger did. But I think, I don't know, the Joker is just so iconic, and that performance as the Joker, I think the only thing that really tops it is Hamill's Joker. So like it's a great movie. I don't know, it's just The Dark Knight is just such a great movie, and that would be the movie that would be like I would have to think if that's the Batman I want to forget because of that movie. I guess as of now, I could say that Ben Affleck might be the Batman I would have to forget because we don't know what his future really entails. But I just have a feeling that Ben Affleck will be a much better.
I know BVS was very divisive and people didn't like that movie. But I like it. I like it a lot for what it is. Part of the reason is because Affleck is a great Batman. He really is. Like he's a really good Batman that I honestly think made me forget about Bale. Because to me, Bale was forgettable anyway. Like he wasn't bad. He was forgettable. But like Affleck really took it. Like he really made it his own. Made a really badass Batman that you didn't want to fuck with. And it's just like he's a good Batman. And no one they give him credit, but like because that movie wasn't that good, like people don't give him enough credit in my opinion.
I agree with that. And I forget who I had this conversation with, but like to have a Batman versus Superman movie, like on paper should be a movie that like I'm buying 10 tickets to. Yeah. And the trailers were really like just piss poor. I think I saw it right around when Wonder Woman came out. Like I probably saw it maybe a couple months before that, like maybe like a month before Wonder Woman, and it was one of those things where like I was so like prepared for the worst that by the time I was done watching it, I was like, okay, like I can see why this is a bad movie, but like it was like it's a good rainy day, there's nothing else on TV kind of movie to watch.
It's fun.
I don't know. I would never say that I liked that movie. It wasn't it was I didn't like it, but I definitely didn't hate it. It's something that I would I would watch again if nothing else was on. Like if every copy of every other DVD I had, I think that, honestly, here was Ang Lee's Hulk. That's to me the worst movie I've ever seen. Like it's my version of The Room. Like it's just so bad.
So it's like the only. Oh, you said the only thing worse than that is Ang Lee's Hulk. So that means that it's one of the worst movies you've seen.
Probably. I mean, it's probably. I have a problem with Zack Snyder. I'm not a huge fan of Man of Steel, and I saw Man. I think I could make an argument to put it in the top 10 worst movies I've seen, but I'm sure that like just like the top 10 movies that I love, I'm sure that list changes easily. So I don't know. It's okay. I'll say comic book movie at the very least. Ang Lee's Hulk is probably the only thing I do not like more than Batman versus Superman. And that's saying something because and I haven't seen the new version of Fantastic Four because again that looked terrible.
It's bad, but not that bad. But continue.
Okay. And I don't know. I forgive a lot of comic book movies. And Batman versus Superman. It's just I don't know. There's just something about it that. Again, I will sit down and watch it if there's nothing else on to watch, or if I really just like, I'll probably watch like all the Batman parts and fast forward through everything else and the Wonder Woman parts because Gal Gadot is pretty genius as well.
I mean, did you see the Ultimate version?
You know what? I have not, and I do want to watch that. And I'll tell you what, I will buy this movie. I don't own it yet, but I will buy it because I do own Ang Lee's Hulk. Because I am that guy that will buy the comic book movie because I need to have them all. For whatever weird reason, I don't know.
Despite hating it, the Ultimate Edition is better. Not by a whole lot, but it is better. Like it makes the movie a little bit more cohesive. There's a little bit more with Superman. There's a little bit more with Batman. It doesn't like make it a good movie, but it does make it better. Like it like let's say I gave it a 6 out of 10. It went to like a 7.5 out of 10 because of Ultimate Edition.
That's good though. Like that, like to me, a 7.5, or even like a 7 out of 10. Like that's still a decent movie. Like it's not terrible. Like for me, if I had to like just on the spot at 12:05 a.m. on October 25th. Give a number to Batman versus Superman, I'm probably going a hard 4 on that movie, which is saying something because Ang Lee's Hulk is probably a 1. So I mean, it's not terrible. I've definitely seen worse movies than that.
Yeah.
I do want to watch the Ultimate Edition. I've heard that it's worth.
It's just if you have 3 hours to kill, it's obviously very long. I mean, personally, I liked Batman vs Superman. I understand why people don't like it. It has a lot of flaws, but like I appreciate what it is. Like there's a bunch of fantastic moments, like a lot of great moments for like Batman fans to go absolutely insane. Like obviously, like the fight between Batman and Superman was obviously not at all lifted from the comic book, Dark Knight Returns, but it was pretty cool. It was great seeing him beat his ass, and then there's the oft praised warehouse scene when Batman just destroys everybody in a giant warehouse, and nobody. I don't think I've heard a single person criticize that scene because it's so cool. And then obviously when Wonder Woman lands right in front of Batman to block the blast from the heat rave blast from Doomsday, like that's like a jaw dropping moment. Like I lost it in the movie theater once I saw her jump down and use her bracelets. And then when she brought out the lasso of truth, I was shouting in the movie theater. Like it was such a stupid little thing, but I was having a huge fanboy moment when she pulled out the lasso of truth. But it's just it has to me like as a huge Batman fan and DC fan, like it has a lot of great moments that you can cheer at for being a fanboy, but it's just wrapped up in like not very good storytelling.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm very forgiving on a lot of things when it comes to movies or television, and for me, a lot of times it just has a lot to do with like, hey, from the journey from A to B, like was it good? Was it worth it? I can forgive bad acting. I can forgive some bad direction, and as long as the story is solid, and that's I think that the problem with that movie is like you're right. There's a lot of moments that I can pick out of that movie and just replay over and over again and be like, oh man, this is a great sequence in Batman versus Superman. But I feel like they've done a lot of course correction from that. Like, and I think putting Wonder Woman as a period piece, I think was the best thing they could do, because it forced them to limit what the story could be and who you involved with it. Like, it had to be just a Wonder Woman story. Nothing else could really be involved in that story. Yeah, they had the little opening and the little ending that, you know, obviously hinted at Bruce and Batman being involved. But other than that, like, it was just such an amazing flick, and it showed me that, all right, DC can do something with their properties. And have you noticed that, like, since then, Wonder Woman has kind of been the central focus of a lot of things?
Yeah, the Justice League trailers for one.
Yeah, I was looking at a picture the other day of the Justice League team, the movie team, and I guess technically she's not direct center because there's more people on one side than the other. If you were to divide, like if you were to cut the picture 50%, 50% of Wonder Woman's on one side, 50% of Wonder Woman's on the other side. Like, she's like quite literally the central focus of the DCEU now. And that's kind of like, it's awesome because, you know, I think it's great that in a world that's pretty dominated by men and male action heroes, that we have this like female hero that not only women can relate to, but like I totally was able to relate to it on a certain level. It's great that she's the central focus, but like it's also kind of nuts that like, hey man, like Superman and Batman are literally like not the central focus. Like the two of the biggest superheroes of all time, not the central focus.
That is pretty cool to admire about them right now. I mean, I'm sure they didn't do it intentionally; it just happened that way. But like, Batman and Superman have long histories of being the biggest superheroes in the world. From the 50s when they're in series of Batman and the Superman TV series and so forth. These are the biggest heroes in the world, and right now they're trailing behind their Wonder Woman. And of all female superheroes, it's Wonder Woman. You know, one of the first female superheroes, the most iconic, the most feminist, not the most feminist, but a feminist icon, and like, it's just awesome that it's Wonder Woman. Every other female character, superhero, it's Wonder Woman. That's one that's kind of leading this DCU right now, and especially because like people doubted Gal Gadot really a lot. Like, they really doubted her, and now she's the best part of the DCU right now. Like, they're just like, she's too skinny, she doesn't look like it. Like, there was so much shit thrown at her, just like they did Affleck. And you know, thankfully she showed them up in her own solo movie, and you know, everybody wants to see more of her now. Everybody wants to see more of her, and it's just like, it's a great story in like just the legit, like in just the how it happened with just the movie making aspect and the world building, not just the great story of like Gal Gadot's sorry, I keep mispronouncing her name, Gal Gadot's, and like the movies, like the stories in the movies, but just the stories how the movie came to be. Like, it's just cool how that worked out for her and Wonder Woman. I don't know, I'm having trouble describing it.
And I get what you're saying, and that movie came out at like such the right time. You know, it's a couple months before it came out. I had an awesome discussion with this actress, Casey Spivey, and it took like a serious turn when we started talking about you know, women in Hollywood and whatnot. You know, it's totally just the obvious sequel to our conversation, because you know, this movie just proves what everything we said we wanted from Hollywood, and it's. You know, it's just a sign that hopefully old Hollywood is finally starting to die out and realize that they're wrong. And I say this at a time where this is another hour conversation, but I say this at a time where there's a lot of controversy, you know, with the Weinsteins and stuff like that. So there is a lot of controversy around that, but I think we're finally in a where it's starting to shift in all the right ways, hopefully.
I mean, I hope so. I'm not hopeful. I hope so, but I'm not very hopeful. I mean, like, there's people like James Cameron. James Cameron
Oh my
is
god, what a dick.
what a dick, right? Like, he's the one of the biggest. He is the biggest filmmaker in the world. If he, because Avatar and Titanic are the highest grossing movies of all time, and he has why? Like, what does he get out of shitting on Wonder Woman? Like, what? Nothing other than to bolster his own ego about Sarah Connor was better than Wonder Woman. Like, what kind of asshole is that? Like, just to shit on a movie that has nothing to do with you, just to promote your own old character from the past that like everybody already recognizes as awesome. Like, you don't have to do that. Like that things like that is gonna make me like not believe it's gonna happen anytime soon. And of course, what's happening with the Weinsteins? I mean, like, it's Harvey specifically. Obviously, it's just like it's obvious it's still happening, and like it sucks that it's happening. But I mean, like you said, I hope so. I really, really hope that this is going to be a shift towards what it needs to be in progression. But I'm not hopeful.
I mean, it may not be in our young lifetime, at least. I'm hoping, but by the time I'm an old man, that means the rest of Hollywood is my age and that they're running things right. But who knows? Like you said, I'm gonna be. I'm hopeful. I take that Kevin Smith route of positivity, all the way to the grave.
I wish I could be as positive as he, man. I'm just as him. I'm just not. I'm more pragmatic. I'd like to think. Like, it's just like, realistically speaking. And then I don't want to get too political, but obviously the folks in government at the moment are just desperately trying to keep everybody else down. And it's just like, oh god.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't. I do not disagree.
Yeah.
But that being said, is there anything else, parting words about podcasting, writing Batman, that you want to share with the folks?
Let me see. I mean, just take what Kevin said, what you said just now. Like, just do it because you love it. Do it for the passion and enjoy it. Because if you do it for the wrong reasons, if you don't do it for yourself, it's not gonna go anywhere. It's gonna end up being a waste of your time almost. Like, it's just not a waste of your time, but it's not gonna be fulfilling. That's the only way I can say it. It's not going to be fulfilling at all if you don't do it because you love it. I mean, that could obviously go towards writing, goes towards anything. So just make sure that whatever you do, you love, obviously. And Batman's better than Superman.
Oh my god, true words have never been spoken. Someone who's started like kind of being able to read comics again over the last 2 months. Go out there and read some goddamn Batman, or anything really. Like, it's all good, but like, just read some stuff from DC. Like, I am so sad that I didn't read DC as a kid, because it is so good. Yeah. So much better. Like, definitely better than a lot of the Marvel stuff that I read. Like, as I think I've read some Marvel stuff as recently as about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was garbage compared to what I'm reading in the DC world.
I wish I could say, I'm not that much of a comic book guy, so I couldn't tell you whether or not Marvel was any good or bad. I like Spider-Man, if that's any consolation.
Yeah. You know what? And before we officially end, I'll say I was reading. Oh shit! I forget the name of the title. I think it was just like partnered up with for that arc. So like there was Spider-Man and Captain America. There was Spider-Man and Deadpool. It was like I only read it for like a couple months, but it was some of the best Spider-Man. Going back to Batman the animated series, how that kind of defines. Like a lot of my Batman knowledge, a lot of my X-Men and Spider-Man knowledge also come from the 90s cartoons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when I think of Spider-Man, I always am looking for that voice, whether it's the live action or a cartoon. I'm looking for that voice that I heard in that animated series. And it was the first time I read a Spider-Man comic book in years at that point. And this was going back probably 3 or 4 years ago. I read the book, and the voice I heard in my head for the first time in years was the same guy who did it was Spider-Man from the 90s. Like, it was just amazing. It was 90s Spider-Man to a T, and I was and I have a feeling that I think there's currently a Spider-Man Deadpool title out there. I'm not 100% sure, because again, I have not, just like you, I'm not up on the current comic books, except for the DC world. And but I believe there's a Spider-Man Deadpool title out there that I've heard some pretty good things about. So go read Batman and Spider-Man, I guess is what I'm saying. They're the two things to take away from this episode.
Dark Knight's metal.
Yep. Oh God, yeah. Well, save for that last issue. That last issue was rough. It's oh God. Okay, one last tangent. Fellow writer for Dark Knight News, Steve Chen,
Yes.
and posted some screenshots of it. So I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna Google myself. And like, I guess I forget what the website is, but it's like comicbookreviewers.com or something. That
Yeah, I know that website. Yeah, it takes all your reviews for comic books in general. Yeah, it's a cool website.
I saw that on the first page. I was like, holy crap. I was like, it's the first time I've seen there's a couple results when I Google my actual name, the way I credit myself. Like, there's more results than I've ever seen before in my life up there that are mine. And I saw that and I was like, huh. Oh yeah, I forgot how much I hated that last issue. Strong word, because I still gave it a 7. But man, it was.
Yeah, you gave it a pretty high score. Actually, I remember that.
Oh, you know what? No, but the one that I really hated was. And not again, hate's a strong word, but was really disappointed in was The Drowned. I really wanted that to be a lot better than it was. It did not hit me, and I think I'm in the minority because I've talked to a bunch of people and they all loved it. I think it did not hit me the way I wanted it to hit me.
Did you review it, or was that Conroy? Steve?
No, I reviewed I reviewed The Drowned. Okay. Yeah. And it was. Did you read it?
I haven't read it. I read your review of it. You were pretty forgiving of it. I didn't
bury it.
Yeah, the way you're talking about it right now, I'm surprised because I thought you liked it.
I think I gave it a 6, which is the lowest thing I've to date. Is the lowest comic book I've rated is a 6.
Oh, really? Okay.
But it is. It's just the character, the idea is so much better than what was executed. And I don't think it was any. I don't know who to put the blame on. It's just, I think the problem with all these tie-ins is that they start to get repetitive with, let's explain what the Dark Knights are and who they are, and like birth from the light and the darkness. Like, we think the light is evil. And, like, it just was very repetitive in like explaining where she came from. I've heard the story. Like, I know where the dark multiverse comes from, and I know why her world died. Like, I get it. I don't need to hear it again. So I'm actually, when we're done this, I want to sit down and read the Merciless.
Okay.
And I'm really looking forward to that one. So I'm hoping that I don't get boned on that. Because that one looks super interesting.
I mean, like, the only thing I can say in regards to that is just like you got to invoke Stan Lee. Everybody's comic book could be their first comic book. Like, it's just someone who hasn't been reading the other tie-ins or Dark Knights for that matter. They're just like, they just saw the cover of Batman: The Drowned. They're like, holy shit, this looks cool, and they read it. That's the only way I can excuse that.
And I agree. And I think I mentioned that in my review, or at least like my spin on what you just said. And it's also why, like, and I'm probably hating on it more than I really should. Now, but it is definitely why I was as forgiving as I was in the review. It's just it did not hit me the way I expected it to hit me.
You had high expectations.
That was my problem with that.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I had the same high expectations for the Red Death one, and whereas that one was pretty low on my ranking as well. It's I had issues with that one, but that one was more about like the idea. Did you read?
I haven't read any of the tie-ins. I haven't read anything.
Okay. So without spoiling too much, the Red Death, like the idea that Batman is willing to kill a fellow Justice Leaguer, even if it's in a dark multiverse world, it seems really bonkers to me. Like, it just the motivation wasn't spelled out clear enough for me. Like, I didn't get it. It was, if you read, I think I don't know. I would hope that if you read it, you would understand where I was coming from, because it does not make, the motivation doesn't make sense. Other than that, the story was actually pretty good. Whereas like The Drowned, I get the motivation. The story just wasn't as good as I wanted it to be.
I see. I just hope that you don't get you don't get too hyped for the Batman Who Laughs, because I know everybody's anticipating that book, and then you find out that it's just not as good as you expected it to be. Then it's going to be a real big disappointment for you, I'd imagine.
With the Dawnbreaker, I try to read these issues like 2, maybe 3 times, just to like let it sink in. Because like I'm reading them to review, so like the first time I read it for me, the second time I read it just to make sure that, like, I'm being kind of objective about it, and then if I'm still unsure, I'll read it a third time. And like the Dawnbreaker, the first time I read it, I was like, oh god, this is terrible. Like I did not like it, and I want to say I read it a second time, and it went like, I think I gave it a 10. Like so I was able to reread it and like have a different mindset about it, and I loved it. I could not do it for the Drowned. Here's my hope for the Batman Who Laughs. I really think they should give that some extra pages. I think that's part of the problem with some of these tie-ins, is that the pacing's a little off. They could course correct a lot of things that they were trying to do. So my advice to Scott Snyder, or whoever is going to end up writing that, but Scott Snyder I know is kind of like the guy in charge for this storyline. If it's not done, if you're not finished it yet, give that an extra 5 pages.
I hope so, because he's gonna make a lot of people. He's gonna disappoint a lot of people if it's not up to par. Because I know people are excited for that book just based on the dark, incredibly twisted version of Batman we're getting, and the images are incredible far for that book. So I hope they listen. I hope they're doing something along those lines, because I don't want to hear all the hate that's going to come out after that book comes out.
Yeah, and that one, I think, I'm definitely going to try to go into it with lower expectations than I have right now. But it's just the idea of like that Batman is just so genius. Like, everyone wants it to work. Though honestly, I'll tell you what, I think after reading the Drowned, I like the idea of that Batman, or Batwoman, really, more than I actually like the Batman Who Laughs. I would definitely, like, I want to see a series on that particular world, and
hopefully with a better story.
Yeah, I would read, like, if it was like a 7 to 10 issue miniseries that like kind of flushed out her character a lot more, and like was a kind of like a prequel to this. I would 100% read that. Like that. So far, the Bryce Wayne is the only character from these Dark Knights that I've said, oh man, like I've said it a couple times, but like I really mean it. Like I want to see like a mini series from this one. Like there's no reason not to. Like it's just such an interesting concept. Like this character explored a little bit more in some fashion.
I mean, I don't doubt that like if this event goes off very well, that they'll do miniseries on all of the Dark Batman. I don't see why they wouldn't do that.
I would probably pick and choose them, because and I think the Red Death, like I think he would benefit from it, because like it would flesh out that motivation, and it would make Batman's motivation in the Red Death. I think I would appreciate that story a lot more, because I didn't necessarily hate the story, I just didn't like the motivation, and I called it in that review. I still think that somehow the Red Death is help save the day, because, well, spoilers, Barry Allen of that dark multiverse is not dead. So if you've read the book, you know what I mean. So without spoiling it for you, Adam, I think that Batman can actually like have some good left in him somewhere. But that being said, it's finally time to rein this in. So, Adam, why don't you give some plugs, buddy?
Oh, okay. Please check out our website, droppingloads.com. It's where we put all of our stuff, our videos, our podcast. Please check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/droppingloadsp. We're putting up content every week. There's at least 2 or 3 videos going up every week on a bunch of different things, not just like our podcast, just a bunch of different things, including a lot of geeky stuff too. And if you want to follow me at Dropping Loads PC, I put out all of our stuff on there. And of course, Dark Knight News, because that's where both of us are writing currently.
Yes. Adam, thanks for doing the show. It was a pleasure talking to you more in depth about some of these nerdy things we enjoy.
No, it was a pleasure. The pleasure was mine. Thank you so much for having me on, Kevin.
And congrats, a preemptive congrats on the 200 episodes that you're going to hit in a couple weeks. Super exciting, something to be proud of. Don't be ashamed to say that you're proud of it, because it is a feat that, especially as an indie podcaster, I can say I've never had a podcast that I hosted and produced make it to 200 episodes yet. So, it's something that you can be in the business 10 years and not hit that number. So, be super proud of that.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. And then I guess I can also extend the same preemptive congrats to you, because your 100th is coming up, and I'm sure it's going to be a big deal too.
Yes. I'm hoping to finalize some things tomorrow about it. So I'm really excited for it. All right. Make sure you check out Everything is Awesome on awesomepodcast.com. We are part of the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network on coretemparts.com. You can see other shows on there like TV Ain't My Brain, Talking Chandela, Let's Chat with Revel and Friends, and a whole slew of others. If you like this show, are way better than this show. You can also find us on Twitter at RealAwesomePod. We're on Facebook.com/RealAwesomePod. And you can find me on Twitter, where I just do most of my tweeting at ThatNerdyKev. And of course, as Adam said, DarkKnightNews.com, where we're both writers for. Check that out if you have a love for Batman. And hell, even if you don't, give it a try, because we'll sway you to be a fan of Batman. For Everything is Awesome, I'm Kev, right here on awesomepodcast.com. We've been awesome!
Thank you for listening to the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Core Temp Arts shows, visit coretemparts.com.